families, and welcome to Indian Prairie School District 204 Parent University. Thank you for joining us. I'm Dawn Forkner, the District's Social Emotional Learning and Wellness Coordinator. Parent University is an opportunity to come together as a community of families and school district staff to learn about and to discuss topics to support our students' academic and social emotional success. This Parent University presentation, titled Managing Peer Relationships, will help parents and caregivers to better understand the changing social landscape our students are facing and how they can support their child as they navigate new and sometimes challenging situations with peers and friends. Please join us as IPSD 204 building leaders, classroom teachers, and mental health professionals share their expertise on how parents and family members can support their child's developing social awareness and relationship skills. Elementary school is an important time in our children's lives. They're learning about friendship and how to be a good friend. And part of that, from time to time, we'll be learning how to manage peer conflicts or when they have a disagreement with a friend or a classmate. With me today is a panel of experts on elementary school friendships.
Hi, I'm Virginia Brandt. I'm a social worker.
I am Robert Bell, Student Services Coordinator.
I'm Kristen Farah, classroom teacher.
Thank you. In the early grades, what does friendship typically look like? And how do these friendships grow and change as they enter into the upper grades?
I definitely think that when a student starts in elementary school, probably in kindergarten and first grade, even maybe second grade, we see a lot of just classroom community where friends are across the board, and we don't see those stronger, more closer friendships develop till they're maybe in the third grade age and they've matured and found those friends with a similar interests.
I think oftentimes too, once they hit the intermediate elementary, they are going based on things that they now are developing that they have in common with each other and their ability to trust each other, and kind of starting to base their friendships on honesty and kindness with each other too.
I see our little ones, especially our primary grades, they just want to belong. They want to run with their friends. They want to enjoy time with their friends. And as the nice lady said, as they go into intermediate grades, that belonging, that family feel that occurs in our classrooms, that's much more important to them.
So what social skills are important in creating and maintaining friendships? And how are these skills being developed here at school?
I know a lot of what we're doing is a lot of community building in the classroom. So taking the time to have students find their common interests with each other. And I know one of the big things that we've talked about this year and kind of like what makes a good friend. And one of our most common responses is whether or not they feel that they can trust a friend, and then kindness.
Cooperation is something, it's almost like a laboratory in our school where the children want to understand how to be a friend, and learning to play together, learning to learn together, learning to work with others is so important in the elementary school.
Well, play is the language of children, and that's how they explore and figure out their surroundings. So especially the primary age, I think a lot of taking turns and sharing and learning how to be flexible and giving up your own interest or conversation topics to listen to someone else. That's a big area that we see children needing to work on and be able to be flexible so that they can show other kids that they care and build those friendships.
Now, if a parent is concerned that their child's having difficulty developing or maintaining friendship or learning some of those skills, how can parents help at home?
I think conversation. Definitely having conversations. And I feel like sometimes we are always so rushed and we forget to sit and actually talk through different situations with kids at home and find out how certain things have made your child feel and help them to also develop proper solutions to those problems as they do arise.
I know we talk a lot about approachability of one child to another. And I think parents can really help their children by role playing and talking through how you approach another child to play. It's remarkable what a smile does to a relationship. You're brand new to the school, encourage your nice little one to smile at others and ask to play. Almost always, it's well received.
And it comes down to just experiences. The more experience a child has, the more they'll be comfortable and able to perform different social skills and build those friendships. If they're involved in sports or clubs or different activities where there's a group of children that are similar age, they're going to be able to build those relationships and learn from each other when they have to problem solve or work through conflict.
And we know that conflict's a natural part of life, and our students will experience conflict from time to time with their friends or their peers, their classmates. What are some common conflicts that you see at elementary level?
I think in the intermediate, we get a lot of gossip. And we have now started to see the kind of he said, she said, and not knowing whether or not those things are actually true or relevant, and oftentimes can lead to that student questioning what's going on with my friend and why did this person say these things. So I see a lot of gossip, and we still see a little bit of the, some of the more immature behaviors too, where they've taken something, taken things from someone's desk that creates a situation, or things go missing. And in part, sometimes kids just think that they're being funny, and it's not always taken, funny by the other person. So they lose trust in each other.
In those intermediate grades, 3rd, 4th, and 5th, as Kristen said, you do feel the exclusion. Some of the social media starts to creep in, and children not feeling as if they belong to their peer group. And the cliques start to slowly form, preparing them for middle school, of course. But I think a parent's involvement in that, and including the teacher in the discussion behind the scenes to make it a safe, nice environment for children to be able to interact, and trying to watch for the cliques and the exclusion.
A lot of peer conflicts that I have worked with students on seems to always resolve around some kind of miscommunication. So whether one student feels hurt or isolated by another student or group of students, it's usually not the case of a malicious intent. It's usually some kind of miscommunication, and bringing the students together and helping them problem solve those situations is effective in breaking down those communication barriers.
So if your student does come home and say that there's been a miscommunication, or they're feeling excluded from their friend group, or let's say, like you had suggested, something was taken from their desk in an attempt to be funny, what can parents do next?
I think parents need to be reaching out to the teacher, because many times our classroom teachers aren't aware of these things, and unless a student or a teacher or a parent communicates that with us, we're not able to help or solve the problem. So I think that would be the first important thing to do.
Yeah, I agree. Definitely reaching out to the classroom teacher just to kind of find out, what had happened. So I think that if a parent should reach out to the teacher and get to the bottom of what may have caused a dispute, just a simple conversation then with their child at home, and how that made them feel, and then what is something different we could do the next time too.
I love this district because I think parents feel comfortable coming to teachers, and school administration for that matter. I know our teachers are all in on making it a safe, happy, fun learning environment. And I think the teacher being alerted that there's a situation that may need his or her attention, it gets that attention. It gets it real fast. And we want satisfied, happy little customers in our schools. And I think for the most part, we get it. But it all starts with the communication or partnership between the parent and the nice teacher.
Mm-hmm. Now, sometimes we know our students get a little bit worried, especially in the upper grades. They'll be labeled a tattletale or they're snitching. How can we reassure our students that communicating with the teacher is actually the right thing to do?
I think a lot of times just having activities in the classroom and doing some role play and even, using the students as an opportunity to like, hey, let's role play this out and let's kind of like see how something like this might unfold in a real scenario, but giving them the opportunities to kind of work through those things with each other, in front of each other, could definitely go a long way for them.
We actively teach social skills. Our school psychologist, our social worker, partner with our teachers to make sure we're actually teaching the skills that we want our students to engage in. And it is very, very successful.
I think we want to, with that teaching, we want to empower our students. So letting them know that even if they have tried to work through a problem, they spoke up about it, they've used their iMessage, they've tried different ways to resolve the conflict with a peer and it hasn't been resolved, that they have a voice and they should then be speaking up for help. And that's not tattling, that's saying, hey, this person is not following through working on this problem, so now I need to get more help to get this resolved.
Could you explain what an iMessage is?
An iMessage is a way to state your feelings and the problem in a way that you're not pointing fingers or saying, you did this to me, you are the reason for the problem. It's saying, I feel because of what you might have done, and this is what I hope will happen. This is how I want it resolved. So it's a clear message that we teach even our youngest children in kindergarten to use when they have strong feelings or conflict with peers, so they can get their voice heard and their feelings heard, and that the problem-solving process can begin.
And lastly, what additional supports are offered at the elementary level for students who are still having difficulty developing and maintaining those friendships?
I know where I'm at, we offer like lunch bunches sometimes with our social workers and psychologists. We even do like a lunch with principal. Some of the classroom teachers have opted to do, a lunch with classroom teacher, so that way we can spend a little bit more time working on some social skills in small group setting. And it seems to really be beneficial because students are able to make, more special connections in those small groups, and then take the time to work on those social skills while you're with them.
I agree with that. I think sometimes when you pull kids together in a smaller group or smaller setting, they can be themselves. They're more authentic, they find more interests that they are compatible with each other, and I think it allows them to then build relationships that otherwise might have been difficult to do in the larger setting.
We do that as well. The social skills training, we have what's called a little boys group, little girls group, where kids get together, play games in a small group with targeted children that we're trying to assist and learn how to behave and build friendships. So our social worker, our psychologist, invaluable. And as Kristen said, our principal, we have lunch with the principal where they play games, talk, and they bring together small groups of children just so they can work on those friendship type of activities.
So thank you so much for speaking with us about this important topic at the elementary school level. We have now moved to middle school, where building and developing friendships is especially important. Here with me today is a panel of experts who spend every day in the middle school working with our 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. Thank you for joining us. So reflecting on the transition from elementary school to middle school, what are some changes students face regarding friendship, both positive and possibly negative?
As a 6th grade teacher, the kids come from the elementary school and they are coming with friends that they know, but those friends are not always in their classes that they are in throughout the day. So that can be both a positive, they can see familiar faces, but that can also be challenging because they are now in a situation where they need to make new friends.
And definitely to build on that, like I said, in an elementary school setting, it's self-contained, so they're used to just being in one spot the entire time and also with that one teacher. But when you're in a middle school setting, you're moving around a lot. So you're having to interact with multiple teachers and multiple students throughout the day. So to build upon what Suzanne's saying is that's a challenge, because when you're comfortable with being with the same person throughout the day, it takes you out your shell to then have to interact with multiple people.
I think it's also a little bit of a difference because kids are coming from different neighborhoods. And so when you're younger, elementary school, you're kind of used to playing with neighbors. Parents are facilitating play dates and getting kids together. And when you get to middle school, that sort of starts to change. So that can be difficult for some kids to navigate, like, how do I get together with someone who doesn't live near me? Or, how do I stay connected to people that I can't just run to their house to play. So that sometimes can be a change for the middle school kids to figure out how to do that.
So thinking about those changes, what sort of social skills are important for students to navigate them successfully?
We're starting this process now, but it's really building the emotional intelligence of our scholars, having them to be self-aware and be able to manage their emotions. And I think what we're trying to do at the school is empower that and have them build kindness. And we're also having curriculum that stresses the importance of emotional intelligence, being know how to interact with students. So that's kind of what we're pushing at the middle school level.
Yeah, I think communication's a huge piece too. Having the students be able to articulate truly how they're feeling and what supports that they need to navigate just the middle school transition in general.
I think also some courage in there for the kids have to be able to ask questions of people who they don't know. And so one of the things that I work with my students on is what are some kind of questions that are just very basic to get you used to. It's not any kind of in-depth conversation, but who do you have for PE? What do you do when you get home from school? Things that are easy for kids to start to build relationships through those questions.
That's exactly where I was going to go with that. Like, it's just encouraging them to kind of step out of that and ask questions and take some initiative with new friends.
And how is the Achieve period being used to encourage those skills?
At 6th grade at Scullin, and I think in most of our middle schools is the same, the first probably month of school in Achieve in particular is all about getting to know new friends, how to have conversations. They play games, they do things that kind of set up those conversations for the kids, so they don't have to kind of create all of their own conversations. And so it's getting to know each other, not just about like what elementary you went to, but what do you like to do, what do you want to learn, what are you interested in trying. They talk about the different activities that we'll have at school, providing ways for kids to get acquainted with other kids in like after school activities.
We also use Second Step in our Achieve classes to pull together some scenarios that the kids can then reflect on and see themselves in, so that if they encounter that during the day, they can utilize those skills.
And we know for some students, making some of those friendships can be more difficult. So what would you recommend parents do if they feel like their child is struggling to not only make friends, but then maintain those friendships?
One of the easiest things to do is after school activities or ways to join in even during the day. So we have so many opportunities for kids within the middle school structure, from after school sports to clubs to leadership opportunities within the school. And so helping them, encouraging them to join some of those groups is an easy way.
I also think that it can be hard as the mom or the dad or the guardian to encourage. Sometimes kids don't want to do it. If it's not cool anymore. If my mom thinks I should join the chess club, then I don't want to join. So give us a call, let us know, reach out to a teacher, reach out to us, go through those morning announcements, find out what's happening at school, reach out to the counselor or a teacher that you are familiar with and ask them, like, I'm noticing my kiddo is not really connecting with kids. Can you help me out with that? Because teachers can be so helpful with the way they pair kids in classes to try to encourage, putting them with someone who's super friendly or someone who they know are a super kind kid, that they would have a good relationship potential there. And then also as counselors or administrators, we're always happy to help navigate that, maybe plant a seed of with your kiddo, like what's going to be something that they might like to do.
Even encouraging them to find a peer to join them is always helpful. I mean, there's always safety in numbers, so I think encouraging them to find a friend who might want to join a club or an activity just to try it out. Doesn't mean you have to stick with it, but at least give it a shot, and take a risk.
All right, so thinking about the importance of healthy friendships, what are some ways for students to recognize if a friendship is having a positive impact on them?
I think for me, it's like, how do you feel after you having those, when you're in the moment? You can always tell how you feel about a person just based on how they feel when they're in their presence, and also if they have the best interest for you. And I think that's kind of weird because the middle school students, they don't think that far ahead, but they understand that, oh, this person made me feel happy, this person made me feel that my voice was heard, therefore that I put value in this relationship. So for them, it's like, how do you feel after encountering with that individual?
Yeah, I think a lot of kids, especially 6th and 7th grade, it starts to change a little bit. Once they get to 8th grade, the maturity sometimes kicks in and they can make more informed decisions about their friends. But I feel like at 6th and 7th grade, there is a lot of changing with friendships. There's kind of trying out new things, which is really what middle school is about, is just practicing those skills. And so I do think kids will sometimes get into friendships that aren't the best for them, and that can be really difficult to navigate, when that friendship ends, or how do I end this friendship, or so that's when the folks at school are really helpful, that we can help kids navigate through that. But it can be difficult for sure.
And just building on what you said, as a parent, if I begin to become concerned that a friendship may not have a positive impact, or maybe this isn't the best fit as a friend for my child, how do I have that difficult conversation with him or her?
I think one of the things that, even as a parent, but also as a teacher, that I say is, if you're uncomfortable as a kiddo having a conversation with me, then there's something not right. So encouraging those hard conversations at home. One of the things that I constantly bring to the kids is, are the choices this person or that person or this group is making, do they align with the choices you would make as your own self and as a family group? You have values at home. How would parents feel about that? So then the parents, I would say, ask those same questions. You have this new friend, are they making choices that align with what our values are? Are they doing things that you are comfortable coming to me and telling me about?
I think it's also powerful to raise those questions, but provide an atmosphere for where the kids are comfortable. So I know that what I want to do in my household, I know my kids are, one is 3 years and one's 4 months, but I really want to have family meetings where we can have that safe space and discuss things, and I'm not going to hold them, whatever's in that safe space kind of stays in that safe space. So I think providing that atmosphere to where they feel comfortable and want to express their feelings and their thoughts, and vice versa, that way that we're coming from an honest place. We want them to be successful, we want them to be happy. Because at the end of the day, that's what we want from our kids.
I usually encourage parents to try, don't be the referee, sort of be the commentator or the play-by-play person. So you're just noticing, like I noticed that when you came home from the game, that you felt kind of bad and you had a couple of negative things that happened, and you shared that about so-and-so. So you're just sort of noticing, I noticed, I feel like, as a parent, as opposed to saying, I just don't think this kid is the best for you, because sometimes that that independence of our middle schoolers will be like, well, if my mom doesn't like that person, then maybe I really will like that person, right? So it can be really difficult. Like I shared what Chris was saying, like as a parent, your emotions get in there, and you want to set up that space where it's safe. And so I know it just takes a lot of practice as a parent too, to just kind of take that breath and, try not to be too pushy with that. So I think sometimes using that idea of not being the referee and just being the monitor of what's happening.
I think there's always that fear that, like, if I tell my parents something, I might get in trouble, or they're going to tell me I can't be friends with them anymore. And so I think trying to eliminate that, setting up norms of some sort for conversations like a family meeting, might be a beneficial start to a meeting.
So what are some peer conflicts that you see students facing on a regular basis, both inside and outside of school? And what strategies do you recommend them using in the moment?
Rumors are a big thing that cause conflict. Social media is a big conflict starter. And guilt by association, if you're hanging out with the wrong person and then you get in trouble for something maybe you didn't do. So I would say one of the things that I would strongly encourage is monitoring your child's social media. That can give you a heads up into some of the things that are going on.
I would say rumors is a big one. I always try to talk with students and encourage them, like if you didn't hear it from that student themselves, I wouldn't say that it would exist. And that's something that where we can do peer mediations or peer circles to further define whether or not that rumor was said by that student or not.
Yeah, I think that talking behind each other's backs is also, it kind of goes with that rumors, but it's really difficult for, this is, in my experience, is more of a female problem, that the girls sometimes, I'm friends, it's a larger friendship group, and you and I might be talking about something, and I might have shared someone's secret, and then she goes and tells the other one. Like that kind of roundabout in those larger friendship groups can be really difficult, and it's hard for, as you want to connect with one friend in your friendship group, you want to share secrets and you want to build that closeness, and then it's really difficult for kids to navigate what to say and what not to say, and what to share and what not to share. So just practicing that and talking about that.
And I think with these conflicts sometimes comes big feelings. So are there any calm down strategies that parents can practice with their students at home?
At school, when kids are kind of, we could sometimes use the word unregulated, when they're really heightened or having a lot of emotions, talking is not always what they need. They need that moment. We use, I know in my office, I use a lot of fidgets and something to distract them a little bit, like it can just be helpful to get calmed down. And then just trying to let them tell their story. And if they, get heightened again, let's take a couple more minutes. And then they don't always want advice or, what should I do next, right? Sometimes they just want to just say it all.
Sometimes even a distraction is key. I know my kids are in elementary school and I have a 1-year-old, but like music, my daughter loves music, so whenever she gets the opportunity to just take a few minutes, listen to some music, and when you're ready to talk, I'm here for you, but not trying to push it.
And I think sometimes kids will want, like, give me 5 minutes on my phone, right? Well, that's okay as long as it's listening to music or something that's actually a calming strategy. So if they're on their phone in their room for 15 minutes as their calming strategy, they could be right back on social media and re-engaging, and so just monitoring that too, is so that it's a good way for them to practice using your phone or technology in a calming way and not in another way.
And I would also ask the child, have you spoken with somebody at school who has given you a strategy that works? So you can learn as the parent, what are some things that my child has already learned and that they have recognized is a strategy that works. So we're talking about some of the things we do here that we might suggest that you wouldn't know as a parent without asking, hey, is there something you've learned that helps you, that has been a new strategy?
I think journaling's been a huge new idea for students to start working on. I mean, not everybody wants to talk about their feelings, but feel more comfortable sharing it in a journal.
Also too, just like as a tip for parents, is that sometimes it takes 3 or 4 strategies, right? Like one doesn't work, they're gonna say, that's never gonna work, that's never gonna work, right? So, okay, well, here's 3, try one. You have to pick one, right? And then they pick one, it didn't work so good, then try another.
Right. And finally, what additional supports are offered at the middle school level if your child is struggling with peer relationships?
So we have social emotional coaches who can be utilized on a need-by-need basis, or it can be a setup where it's once or twice a week where they meet and they discuss peer relationships as they occur.
And it's a consistent social emotional learning coach, so it's somebody they can build a relationship with. We also have guidance counselors work similarly, where they're given a specific guidance counselor for the entirety of their middle school career, so they have that consistency following them.
Even as administrators, we have students in our offices all the time doing peer circles and trying to navigate those, so we are also individuals that can be utilized.
Yeah, it's really important that kids have one trusted adult. It's often a counselor or an SEL coach or something like that, but sometimes it's not, right? Sometimes it's the teacher you have 3 times a day. And I can't think of a teacher who wouldn't be willing and interested in helping a kid navigate any kind of conflict that they might be having.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your time and your expertise. Is there any last thoughts you have for our parents?
Reach out if you have any questions. Reach out to a teacher, to administrator, whomever, and we usually able to help you navigate what needs to happen for your child's success.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. High school is an important time in our students' lives for figuring out who they are and what kind of people they would like to be. One of those influences are the types of friends that they surround themselves with. Today, we have a panel of experts sharing how our high school students can develop and maintain healthy relationships during those years. I'd like to introduce
Charles Bibbs, Assistant Principal.
Andrea Smith, Social Emotional Learning Coach.
Janine Wayne, School Psychologist serving in the role of Positive Engagement and Student Support Coach.
All right. Reflecting on the transition from middle school to high school, what are some changes students face regarding friendships, both positive and some of those challenges?
I feel like when kids transition to high school, it's such a larger environment. So those close friends they may have had in the middle school, now we're double, tripling, quadrupling the amount of kids that we're seeing and that we're meeting. So some of those closer friendships might stay closer in support of each other, or they might kind of divide as they find new interests and friends in this such larger environment.
Some of the negative things we find with transitioning is that difficulty in meeting new people. And I think our 8th graders may struggle just a little bit with how to just be a good friend or be a positive, I guess, conversation when they say, "Hi, how are you? My name is Rand." They'll say, "Oh, okay," and walk away instead of just saying, "Hi, my name is Susan, nice to meet you." And I think we try to enhance that piece just a little bit with our link leaders here at some of our high schools around the building, and that helps tremendously.
I would say some of the struggles are similar to what you see in 8th grade. From my experience, 9th and 10th graders have more difficulty with having drama in relationships, for lack of a better term. And so that, I think that continues, and it starts in late middle school and then it continues on into the high school years until about the end of sophomore year.
So what are some ways that the high school students can navigate these challenges successfully?
At the high school level, when they transition here, most of our high schools are set up in teams. They have a house for an alpha slice or a house by grade level. And each of those houses, they have a support structure of a dean, secretary, counselor, psychologist, social worker. And when they get to the point that they're able to be a self-advocate and go to the house team and say, "Look, I'm feeling a little anxious today." And then, you know what, hang on a minute, sit down and relax. Let's get a social worker up for you to kind of chat with.
One thing that I think people often overlook is the importance of being involved in activities. And so a lot of the students that I've seen have the most difficulty with adjusting to high school are those that are hesitant to take a risk and just try something. Because often if they try something that they're interested in, an activity, a sport, a club, theater, whatever, they're gonna find people who are like-minded, and they're gonna find positive sponsors who they maybe would never have as a teacher. So I think getting involved in things is one of the biggest things that people can do to help.
I also feel like a good way to prepare for high school is to maybe just reflect on what your values are, what you've worked towards, the person you're starting to become, what your interests are, and then having an open line of communication with a trusted adult too, because it is such an emotional transition, to make sure there's a mom, dad, aunt, grandma, teacher, somebody, coach, just to kind of talk through that with, because we've all been through high school and it's not always the most fun, you know, at certain parts emotionally and with that friend piece. So, and then the other part, like knowing their values, right? So knowing where you stand, what you believe in, what you will and won't do, you know, just because then you kind of set that boundary for yourself and others as you go into those activities or those different friend dynamics that we run into, right? Because there's all sorts of kids we're gonna run into in high school, so.
Sure. So what social skills do you think are important to navigate these changes, and how are they being taught at school?
I think the big one for our 8th graders transition to high school is being an active listener. And that's going to take them through these relationships with friends and their teachers, and especially when they go visit and have those supports in that house system. If they're able to listen and comprehend and then react, I think that's one of the most valuable skills they can have.
Yeah, right. And I feel that is true, right? But that that age, like you were saying, 9th and 10th graders tend to almost pretend they don't have that skill almost at that age, or they don't have that skill. So yes, I do agree with that as well. Like, listen to someone else. I think that idea of positive intent, right? That as educators, as adults with teenagers, we're supposed to assume positive intent from them. They should do that for each other, right? So much with the social media and the group texting and all the rumors that fly around and that. So maybe that assuming positive intent of others, first could keep it.
That's true. I think learning how to set boundaries is something that can really help students understand how to feel safe in navigating their world, because there are so many things coming at them all the time, whether it's in person, on virtual world and social media. There's just a lot. So learning how to set boundaries is such a big thing. And I think you asked how are they learning that in school? And I think, just the positive adults that they're with, they are helping with those interactions. There's a lot of support staff, like you mentioned, and even just from each other. There are a lot of kids who already get it, who understand, and they want to have those discussions with others.
Absolutely. So if a parent is concerned that their child is not making friends or not being able to maintain long-term friendships, what can they do to support their child?
Start by calling and communicating with that house team. I know I keep talking about this house team, but it is a vital aspect of this growth process and this maturation that's going to take place in high school, because they're with them throughout their high school journey. And the parents that are having these difficulties, they'll get to know the team. And that support for that student is going to be something that's going to cause that parent to exhale, like, oh, I never knew that was available. That's available now. I feel so much better with them coming to school with these resources.
Parents can help their students navigate this by listening to them. So often some of the students I work with are struggling with social issues, and a lot of times they don't feel like people hear them or understand them or are seeing it from their lens. Again, I didn't grow up with the same environment that our students are growing up in, so sometimes it's hard to relate to them. However, we have to believe them when they say, like, this is happening, this is what I feel, this is... So I think listening to them, and then if you're truly listening to what's going on, then that would be where then we could join with the house, or we could look at what activities are good for them. What are their interests, what are they strong at, what are they struggling with, and then find an activity that matches that, I think would be a good suggestion.
And I think just helping them understand that, like, relationships aren't easy, and sometimes friendships will come and go, and modeling that that's okay. So it's really for parents to differentiate and help their child differentiate between, like, is this a major problem? Like, have they had a history of their whole life not being able to make friendships, and they might need some assistance with that, professional or in school? Or is it really just like they're going through a little phase where their group spread apart and they need, it's just gonna be that way for a little while. Like, sometimes we just have to sit with the fact that life isn't what we wanted it to be, and how do we move towards making it what we do want it to be, and kind of helping them with that, whether it be joining clubs, activities, or just like, I'm sorry, that really stinks that you're dealing with this right now, and kind of validating what they're feeling.
Which goes nicely into our next question. Thinking about the importance of healthy friendships, what are some ways for students to recognize if a friendship is having a positive impact on them? And how can parents help their child recognize those healthy friendships versus perhaps less healthy friendships?
Typically around the high school, if it's a healthy friendship, you're smiling a lot, you're excited about seeing the person, you're excited about being in this space, and the parents will get that too. Said, oh, my friend so-and-so brought me this. They have a good relationship, good conversation, and they listen and talk to each other. Those toxic relationships, that wreaks havoc on a lot of the anxiety that we're seeing. And sometimes with a toxic relationship, our kids don't know how to separate themselves from it, and it becomes even more deadly. And then when you get home and mom and dad, they don't want to talk about it. And they're like, what's happened? She or he has changed. We don't know what's going on. So that's something parents need to be mindful of. And that piece is try to listen. Sometimes, and if they have a little bit of a toxic relationship, parents, and if you recognize it, don't say, I don't like your friend Rebecca. Yeah. Just say, you know what, maybe maybe, what do you guys have in common, or what were some fun things you guys do? And that kind of leads the child to think, well, I still got my support, and they're going to help me out of this, instead of punish me for being associated with someone that's toxic.
Right, because that pushes them right towards that person. I think parents and kids in general should trust their instincts a little, their gut, right? Pay attention to your body, pay attention to how you're feeling. If you hang out with this kid, are you feeling light, energetic, joyful? Or are you feeling small and you can't be yourself and nervous? So I think that parents could see their kids change, their personality change, and I think kids know too when they're feeling that change. But like you said, that strength to pull away from that. So then again, that's where you involve the house, the parents, but everybody has to be on the same page. And yeah, I like that idea of, oh, well, what do you guys have in common? And what do you enjoy together? And how do they make you feel? And then that helps that student reflect oh, I guess we don't have that much in common, right? And so then it's just, oh, they just know this person or in that class. And so, yeah, again, the listening piece and listening to yourself, listening to and noticing those things right away, right? If it's a whole week where your student is off and then you hear this new name, well, now we just have to touch base there. Don't wait 6 months. Don't wait a whole semester, because then sometimes it's...
But to piggyback off what you said, trusting your gut as a parent, I think we all as parents know that you know how your child is, and if there's something off or wrong, and to go with it. But that goes back to you can't wait until high school to establish a relationship with your own child, and so making sure to all these years checking in with your kids, being a good listener to your kids, validating, being there for them, and helping them understand that you're a safe person to just bounce ideas off of or listen to. And it's easier with some kids than others, believe me. I know in my own family, it's some are naturally coming to you and talking, and they just say it. They say what's going on, and others you have to pull it out of. But you have to do the work on the front end when they're little to really build those relationships that will take them through those hard high school years when you really need them to come to you.
That's true, and that's a beautiful thing. If parents are able to establish that, and our parents are so busy these days, and and the children come home. But I tell you, that transition from 8th grade to high school, once they're in high school, that maturation process, that adolescence kicks in, and you have another person standing in front of you. It's not that person that came from elementary to 7th grade. They got there in high school, and you're like, I don't know them anymore. Well,
point.
You know what? It's time to get to know them.
Right.
Yeah.
Reintroduce yourself. Both of you, right? You could be a different adult to that teenager than you were, right? Each year my son gets older, when we talk about whether it's what our values are or our correct behavior or how to make friends, you just release a little more information, and you'll take a little more, and then you share more about your story. And each year you could, just like we do with school, right? You get a little more in depth with that each year. So if you want to connect with a kid that's not connecting, maybe give them a little more about yourself, or share a related story, right? That we're just cooking dinner. Oh, I remember in sophomore year, and you just tell the story, and then that might, because then they might not feel that you've ever experienced the same thing they're experiencing. Again, we're older, different generation, all this, but teenagers have been talked about the same way since Aristotle, right? Right? And so, it's not like they've changed that much, it's just the world around them that's changed, and we need to be less, can you believe them? Yeah, they've been that way for thousands of years. So,
and we were that way 30 years ago too, right?
Right, so a little self-reflection of what did it feel like for me? And Aristotle wrote about how teenagers fight back, so yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's just it's finding ways to connect with your kids, telling those stories, because kids, I've found this with my teenagers I've worked with over the years, is that they feel like often adults have this vibe of I'm perfect, I came out of the womb perfect, I've got it all together, I dress nicely and I look nicely and I have a nice job, and whatever it is, they don't realize that most people have gone through difficult times, and because adults need to share that with kids a little bit for them to understand that they can be connected with,
It's strange you mentioned that. I was sitting with the group this week, And one of the seniors came up to me and he said, Mr. Bibbs, you know, it's getting weird. I said, what's wrong? He said, well, you know what, this is it. Yeah. I said, no, well, you know what, this is a part of the journey. And I said, you know, we check boxes along the way, we do things along the way, but he said, yeah, it feels a lot weirder though. It's like, you know, this is it for me in high school and I'm done with it, and I can't believe high school is over. It's time for me to start making little decisions on my own without the safety net or without the umbrella of high school. And then another group, some other kids were talking one day and they said, they had come from a social work session, they had mentioned something about an invisible backpack.
Oh yeah. Oh.
And they said, you know, I said, oh yeah, I can see yours. They said, no, Mr. Bibbs, it's the stuff that people come with that no one else can see. And it says, we got a lot of stuff. And I said, well, you know, hopefully you know, seeking the supports we have to help you navigate that stuff. And most of them do. And so that's what we encourage a lot. You know, if you've got your backpack and are things in that backpack making noise or rattling, then, you know, let someone know, let that trusted adult know. Yeah. No matter who it is, it could be your grandpa. That's fine.
It could be the neighbor.
Yeah, let them know. And they can hopefully get back to the school and say, hey, here's some things, how do you guys work with that? And then we're all over it. We got them.
So another thing, I know we're on this question a long time, but going back to how do you develop relationships with your kids when they're a different person, they're a teen, they're difficult. Teens still like the same things little kids do. I mean, yesterday I had a couple students who were playing cards. They were just playing, like, I don't remember what it was, War or something that I play with my 7-year-old, right? So just connecting on a card game or connecting, even if you don't have that much time, like just making sure that when they're in their room all night, because teenagers are in their room all night, you just pop in and say, buddy, I'm happy to see you. I love you. Have a great night, and just check in 1 minute.
The check-in is so important, so important. I've spoken to so many teenagers that are having a hard time, and I haven't had anyone smile at me today. No one has said hello to me today. I haven't had a hug and I can't remember. You know, so there's so yeah, you might think like, ooh, they don't even want to talk to me. Yes, they do. Yes, they do. They might act like they don't, but yes, they do. They're just very too cool, but they want hugs, stickers, snacks, love, smiles, dance parties, like whatever. They want that stuff still if you can get them to do it, you know, so yeah.
So what are some common peer conflicts that high school students encounter inside and outside of school?
Social media. We just all say it, the rumor mill and the back and forth and because not only does it affect friendships, right? Like how we meet people, what the dynamic is it a real, you know, live friendship or not? But also their romantic relationships it affects, right? The controlling part of you're not allowed to be friends with other people on social media. You can't like that meme, you can't. So there's so much, I just feel like that is a huge peer connector, so it can be awesome as a connector, you know, whether it's like with your team or your club or advertising, you know, the dance you just did, but also there's a lot of like quiet underlying bullying and rumor mill stuff going on, and that happens all day, right? They're in school with the phone and it's happening, and that adds anxiety to their day. It might be why they act different in math class than they did in English class, or lunch is awkward because within 50 minutes their whole world could have changed via the phone. They should have parameters on their phone. They should have limits on their phone. There should be some guardrails, I guess, because that's what we see.
I know you're going to figure that out. The media is tough in high school, but we know that and we're addressing that. A couple of things with the cell phones too is that the high schools are trying to figure out best practices. We don't want to do any kind of policies that's going to upset the apricot, but best practice with a cell phone in the classroom. We have a lot of classrooms with pouches on the doors or pouches on the wall, and typically it started with testing. If we're doing an assessment, then your phone has to go in a little pouch on the wall. Your number is number 1. That kind of cuts back on the distraction of trying to tell someone what's going on in class and what test we're taking. But even generally, as they go into the classroom, that may be a practice of just putting it away. Let's just focus on what we're doing here. And another component of high school and coming in with students, a lot of times they try to get a read on the environment of what the girls wear, what the boys wear. Before we even get to media, they're trying to fit in some way. They're trying to say, okay, does everybody here wear Ugg boots? Does everyone here has a cool sweater? Everyone here wearing Lululemon twice a week? So they check, wait a minute, they check that stuff out.
Yeah, they sure do.
And that kind of works on your psyche a little bit, says, you know what, I'm okay, I'm gonna tell mom what I need. Or some say, oh shoot, I'm not gonna be able to do that. How else do I fit in? Because they look at all these components when they try to fit in. Boys too. What kind of cool jackets are people wearing? You know, shoes are kind of going out of style as long as you keep a clean pair. Don't worry about it. But it's just that I notice the girls and boys, and if you watch them, once they come in as freshmen, second semester, they all start dressing alike. They all start, you know, liking the same kinds of things. And it's just that 1% that just kind of may be outliers because there's other stuff's going on. But in general, our boys and girls kind of like to mimic what's cool and what people perceive as cool. And then, like you said, the media stuff is a whole different world.
Because they'll see it on TikTok, and now that's the new thing, and now everybody. Yeah.
But then with the TikTok and things like that, in the classroom, it's minimized.
That's good.
When it gets minimized in there, now you can have it during passing periods, but you got 5 minutes. You get to your next class, you got to make a decision. Either you're working with it with permissions from the teacher, or you're going to put it away. And like I said, that practice is probably going to be getting stronger and stronger as we go down the line with this media stuff.
I think that's really important. It's like, it goes back to boundaries and understanding boundaries, and I think it's knowing your own child. Like, I had a freshman a few years ago whose parents knew their child had no ability to set phone limits. And so the parents, this was of a freshman in high school, set like parental controls on the phone, so they only had like 30 minutes during the school day, and that was it, because they were addicted. I mean, really could not put the phone down. And so that was, I thought, a really good example of a parent who understood their child and put things in place to help them be able to learn and to be able to be engaged in the school environment and even engaged with peers, because they might be like, you know, on their phone all the time and not engaging. Whereas others, I mean, there are other kids who are more self-aware, and they have worked on their own boundaries because they know, as we all know, how hard it is sometimes to pull away from your phone with everything that's going on and everything that's on there. I've had students use apps to like limit themselves, to time them, to just a lot of different strategies.
There's so many ways to do it,
yeah, to be able to, because it isn't all or nothing. Let's be realistic. It's
right.
Like, how do you live with it, and how do you be productive and engaged in your world with an appropriate use, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right, I know we've touched on this before, but could you reiterate one more time what supports are available at the high school level for a student who might be struggling with peer relationships?
We go back to our house system. Oftentimes, in that house, there's a dean, there's a counselor, there's a social worker, there's a psychologist, all working with that student for the entire journey of their high school career. They can use it, or, I mean, if they don't feel the need to access that support, then something along the way, the teacher may say something, hey, you know, Jenny's she's not herself a lot, and all she has to do is report that to the house team. That social worker is going to find Jenny. And she's going to say, hey, I'm going to just introduce myself and meet you, just know how high school's going for you, and kind of talk about the responsibilities of a social worker. And once some of those kids find out, they hear these terms, but they don't know what that person actually does and what that person actually means to them. And once they figure that out, they have a trusted adult, they have a therapist, they have a resource, they have whatever they need there. And then they'll get into their academics. If you're not doing well, then we're going to find supports for you. They're going to tell them when the tutors are available, when there's an ARC in the building you go to during lunch. There's all kind of support. And there's weekend support. So they have a plethora of, I guess, resources and supports at the high school that oftentimes, if the parents are not asking for it and the kid is not asking for it, they're going to get it anyway, because the teachers are seeing it, and adults in the house are seeing it, adults around the building may see it. Any adult can say, you know, I saw this on first day. Hey, what's your name? How you doing today? And you tell them your name. They'll go to the house and say, she was crying in a corner. I don't know why. And then someone's going to get that child and put their arms around them and bring them in and let the parents know what they're doing.
And to add on to that, I think there's a spectrum of how severe the issues are, you know? So there are so many students who just have typical on and off friendship problems, and they've developed relationships with their own teachers, and their teachers are the people that they have gone to, or their coaches, and kind of just like vented about things, because it's not quite at the level of needing like someone to really come in and intervene, but it's just needing a trusted adult who is there and can listen and validate and kind of give you some advice if you want it. And so there's kids who benefit from that to like the house and beyond. Like we've got the CARES clinics that are operating in our buildings that people can access if they need even a higher level of support or would like that. Or using referral GPS to kind of like get access to a therapist that would work with your insurance. There's so many different levels of support that people can access that we support.
So listening to that, then I would encourage parents, right, to reach out to that, right? A lot of teenagers be like, there's no one there. They don't have it. You know, like they might give that answer like, no. If you're aware of what's there, the parents can reach out too. And so just to know what your resources are, right? Just look at them, know them, and then also that communication piece with your child saying, I know, we know, did you know? We have to, right? And to tell them what's available and that you know and they know and we all know that this is available to you if and when, right? Because sometimes they don't know, or if a parent doesn't bring it up, well, what if my mom doesn't think that? Or what if my grandma doesn't like counseling? Or what if they're mad at me if I go to the social worker, because then I'm telling what's going on. But at the same time, to keep a child's mental health and to have them grow the way that they should grow, they gotta be able to talk about it, right? And so for parents to be like, oh, I know what resource we have. I think that's to use those resources.
And also on our websites, and all the high school websites, is the activity and club, and like there's all the list on our websites of all the things that kids can get involved in to kind of, I mean, there are thousands of kids in our high schools, so there's a group for everyone, and to find people who are like-minded and like the same things is really important. And in my role, when I worked in the high schools, I would have kids that I needed to push, and so I would work with the parent, work with the student, and walk them to a club after school, and maybe even sit there with them in the club the first time or the second time. So there are ways that we can help parents help their kids take risks in terms of joining and getting outside of their comfort zone a little bit to meet people and to develop those friendships.
Because they take that positive risk, right? It's almost like teenagers are afraid to put themselves out there in a positive way, but they'll take risks that they probably aren't the healthiest risks, right? So take the healthy risk, take the putting, like you said, hi, how are you? Like that part, right? To introduce yourself to someone instead of like, well, there's that other quiet person in the corner and like, what could we get into or something? Instead, it's okay to put yourself out there. And how long does embarrassment last?
Well, I have to say kudos to the parents around here. They do a really phenomenal job, because the percentage of folks that do hide away in the corner or want to sit by themselves is so low that it's obvious, and someone is going to target them. Some adult is going to say something, because these kids are so social. They're around here, and the parents do such a good job, with the rearing, that it's like I said, if someone like that, they're going to be noticed. They're going to be noticed, and they're going to get some support, whether they care for it or not. The parents can always say absolutely not, but most of the time they don't. They're receptive.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your expertise and your experience and your knowledge about helping our high school students with their friendships and their peer relationships.
Thank you.
Developing and maintaining healthy friendships is an important part of growing up. Conflict with a peer or a friend is natural and will likely happen from time to time during your child's school-age years. With your support and guidance, students can learn more positive strategies for interacting with others. And remember, schools and families are partners in supporting student success. Principals, teachers, and mental health professionals are happy to speak with you and to answer any questions that you may have. So please do not hesitate to reach out and ask. Thank you for joining us.